All right, we are now 10 days away from the start of Gamecock football. Here we sit on August 21st, 2025, a day that will go down as one of the biggest in the history of the University of South Carolina athletic department, especially the football program. Obviously, today, early on, it was announced that tomorrow, August 21st, or excuse me, August 22nd, the Board of Trustees will meet to discuss a new apparel partner, and all indications are pointing to Nike, which would mean obviously goodbye to Under Armour. Under Armour, I think it's important to state just how crucial they were when they came on board with South Carolina in 2007. When they signed with Carolina, that was one of the biggest deals to ever happen to the university. I remember being at that spring game and they made the announcement. I remember four players came out wearing it was two black uniforms or two black jerseys and two white jerseys. The reason why was because the garnet jerseys weren't garnet enough, so they had to send them back to Under Armour to change. But it was a huge deal at that time. And since then, Under Armour has been a very good partner with South Carolina. It's brought financial opportunities for the athletic department and the football program alike. They have helped Carolina in many different ways in expanding the brand and allowing Carolina to become more of a national brand. Prior to that, football was exclusively Russell Athletic, and there was no shoe deal. I remember before Under Armour, it was Reebok shoes. Prior to that, I think it was Adidas. Prior to that, it was Nike. It was just kind of a hodgepodge, and take a guess on who it'll be this year. That was kind of the way it felt. But now, when Under Armour came in 2007, it kind of unified everything, and it wasn't just football. Because if you go back to that time, Russell Athletic had the uniform contract for football, baseball, and I believe softball. Adidas had men and women's soccer, and Nike had men and women's basketball, and it was just kind of all over the place. Under Armour changed that. It didn't happen all at the same time. Football was first, and that started in 2007. Then baseball changed to Under Armour for the 2008-2009 academic year. I think softball was with them at the same time. Men and women's basketball, I believe, was 2010-2011. And I think the last ones to come on board with Under Armour was men and women's soccer. So Under Armour has been a very good partner for Carolina. That being said, Under Armour has just kind of, I guess for lack of a better way of explaining it, Under Armour has just kind of been left behind. You see what Nike and Adidas are doing. Air Jordan is getting in to college football and other college sports as well. And the thing that those brands do exponentially better with on so many levels than Under Armour is the product of their shoe. That is what makes all of these companies tick, and Under Armour has just never gotten it right. Going to Nike is going to be exceptionally better for Carolina, I think, from an athletic department standpoint. And I also think it will help in recruiting. You cannot overstate what matters to an 18-year-old coming out of high school. Yes, obviously, right now NIL will take precedent. But you look at the deal that Tennessee just came out with Adidas. Who's to say Nike isn't going to offer that or something similar to that? We don't know yet. We don't know what Carolina will gain financially because of this, because the deal is going to happen. It's going to happen quickly. The board will approve this, but we won't have any official word, I don't believe, until January 1st, because Carolina is contractually obligated to not say anything about changing until New Year's Day. But that being said, it is a very exciting opportunity that Carolina is venturing into, and I think Carolina is going to benefit tremendously because of this. It's kind of funny. You see Auburn switch to Nike this year because back in 2006, Auburn switched from, I believe at that time it was also Russell Athletic. They switched from Russell to Under Armour. 1 year later, Carolina does the exact same thing. This year, Auburn is going to Nike. What's going to happen next year? Carolina is going to Nike as well. It's funny how that works, but I think it's just all coincidental. But that being said, I think that this is a very good move for Carolina. There is no better uniform vendor out there right now. And I think the Gamecocks are going to be very, very happy with this from players, coaches, staff, and fans alike. I think that Nike does a very good job of selling t-shirts, polos, hats, other accessories that you can purchase in the stores. So that's going to be great for Carolina fans for sure. Under Armour, again, just was not the best at that. They make good products, no question about it, but just some of the stuff that you see on the sidelines were never available in the stores. And I think that's going to be beneficial for the fans, which is certainly a good thing. And again, it will be profitable for Carolina. So that is probably the top headline in Columbia today. However, the biggest news of the day involving the entire SEC was the announcement that came out around 5 o'clock today, and that is starting in 2026. The year Carolina will start with Nike, the SEC is moving from an 8 to 9 game conference schedule. I've got it right here in front of me. The SEC will continue with a single standings, non-divisional structure. Each school will play 3 annual opponents focused on maintaining many traditional rivalries. Each team's remaining 6 games will rotate among the remaining schools in the conference. Each team will face every other SEC program at least once every 2 years, and every opponent home and away in 4 years. That has got to be music to every SEC football fan's ears, because conference expansion came and the schedule expansion hasn't happened yet. And this goes all the way back to 2012 when Missouri and Texas A&M came in. Now you add last year Texas and Oklahoma. You cannot leave it at 8. You couldn't leave it at 8 13 years ago when expansion happened the first time. Or I guess you could say the second time. It was atrocious how scheduling has been since then. With the exception of 2020 when it was a 10-game all-conference schedule because of COVID. Aside from that year, the conference slate has been terrible. I mean, you think about Carolina. We saw Mississippi State 3 years ago at home, but we haven't gone to Starkville since 2016. LSU came here for the first time. I guess you could say it was the first time Carolina had a home game with LSU, and the reason I say it like that is because technically in 2015, we all remember we call it the flood game. Steve Spurrier's last game as a Carolina head coach as a college head coach was in Baton Rouge, but it had to be rescheduled, or at least the venue had to change to Tiger Stadium in Baton Rouge because of Hurricane Matthew and the flooding which took place in the state of South Carolina. Carolina has since gone back to LSU again in 2020, but LSU finally came to Columbia for the first time since 2008, last year. And Carolina will obviously face LSU again this year, which is obviously one of the biggest games on the schedule as we sit here 10 days from the start of the schedule. So looking forward to this. This is what needed to happen, but also one of the other big factors, and maybe the biggest factor here, one of the stipulations is that each team in the SEC will play 9 conference games, but they have to play they are contractually obligated to play at least one out of conference Power 4 school. So that's nothing new for Carolina, Florida, Georgia, and Kentucky. However, the other 3/4 of the conference are going to have to find out of conference opponents to play. That is going to be outstanding if these other programs decide to give the fans what they want. The first thing that comes to my mind, and I think a lot of people's minds, Bedlam could and should come back. Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. Yes, it's a slanted rivalry, but nevertheless, it's a lot of fun to watch. Another one that comes to my mind, a game that's called the Border War. Kansas and Missouri. Those two should be playing. So there are a lot of potentials with the non-conference slate that you could see. It's exciting because the schools will be rotating a lot, and you will see 3 permanent opponents rather than just your traditional one opponent. For the last, 11 years, Carolina's permanent opponent has been Texas A&M. Prior to that, it was Arkansas. I think that if you were to go to Vegas and find someone who's putting prop bets out there, and you want to get on board with something that's almost a lock, the one you can probably get on board with is Alabama. I think that their permanent opponent, the 3 permanent opponents that Alabama will have, will be Auburn, obviously, Tennessee, and LSU. I could be wrong, but I would be shocked if I am in this case. The rest of the conference, it's hard to say. If I were making the schedule and making the permanent opponents for Texas, I would say your permanent opponents are Oklahoma, Texas A&M, and Arkansas. You have, in that scenario, the Red River Shootout, and then you have 2 of their fiercest Southwest Conference rivals. I don't see how you could go wrong there. Let's see now. As far as who Carolina's 3 permanent opponents could be, it's anyone's guess. I think a lot of fans would prefer it be Georgia, Florida, and Tennessee. I would not be shocked if it's one of those schools, but I would not be shocked if it's none of those schools. Someone, I think, put out a projection, and this is nothing official, but it's possible that Carolina's permanent opponents could be Georgia, Missouri, and Vandy. I think that if I were to guess, based on what we've seen out of the SEC the last couple of years, I would guess Missouri, Kentucky, and Texas A&M. That would just be my guess. But who knows? Who knows at this point? Nevertheless, it's exciting. And oh yeah, by the way, we're 10 days away from the start of Carolina football. 9 days away from the start of your traditional Saturdays, and 2 days away from the start of all of college football. And as we sit here on August 21st, 2005. There is no update yet on Rasul Faison's eligibility. And to say that it's getting frustrating would be an understatement. Why the NCAA will not announce a decision is anyone's guess. Some decisions they came to very quickly, i.e., Diego Pavia, but now you have a situation where Rasul Faison has been on campus since January. His paperwork was filed in January, and it just makes you wonder what on earth are the scumbags at the NCAA doing? I mean, I would honestly say the offices of the NCAA are probably occupied by the second highest percentage of scumbags in the country outside of the Capitol building. Sorry to interject politics into that, but you get what I'm saying. It's interesting for sure just to see what way they're going to go. They obviously gave him a few weeks ago a waiver to practice, so you would think there may be something to that, but still, again, who knows? This may drag on into the season. We may never get an answer, and that's extremely frustrating. Excuse me. That being said, I think that you have to, I would say, just be as patient as possible and hope for the best. Who can say? Who really can say at this point? However, that being said, Faison is, of course, the topic of discussion. But if you look at the rest of that running back room, I think you have a very talented crop. I think about 2 years ago when Marshawn Lloyd jettisoned and went to Southern Cal. Excuse me again. And then Carolina was faced with a decision, and there really wasn't anybody behind Marshawn Lloyd at that time. So they decided, okay, let's plug DK Joyner in and see what happens. Well, as we saw, it was just as putrid as humanly possible. You had some nice moments out of Mario Anderson, but once Rocket Sanders set foot on campus last year, it was Mario who? Mario Anderson, again, did some really nice things, but he just was not an SEC back. However, the running backs in that room right now, Howell, Augustave, Attaway, you look at those guys are true running backs and they can play in the SEC. So I think that Carolina is in a good spot in the running game, even if Faison is not cleared. And oh, by the way, your quarterback, who is a candidate or a potential candidate for the Heisman Trophy, he's a pretty darn good runner too. So I think that if Faison is able to go, it's a boost. If not, I don't think Carolina is going to feel it quite as badly as they felt the loss of Marshawn Lloyd 2 years ago. I think that receiver room right now is deep, it's talented, and maybe the best crop of freshmen that Carolina has brought onto campus in the receiver room in a long time, if not ever. Rowe, Murph, Sellers. I'm sure there's plenty more right now. I don't have the roster in front of me, but from all indication, what we're hearing, this group is going to be a strength of this program. I think the offensive line is going to be a strength of this program. As spring and summer have come and gone, the more I think about it and the more I hear about it, especially with August camp going on right now, I think the defense is going to be okay. I think they'll be a good unit. I don't think they'll be as elite as a year ago. It would be unfair to expect that of them. But that being said, I think this group can go out and win games. Right now, the edge position is a concern, not because of depth, but because of injury. Certainly, when you lose Kyle Kennard, it's going to hurt. But Stewart is back, and I think that's going to be, that's obviously, he's not Clowney by any stretch of the imagination, but you feel comfort with knowing that he is back and that he is going to be productive. And what you are so far hearing out of August camp is that, yeah, he is going to be a problem. And oh, yeah, he's better than what he was a year ago at this point, which you expect, and you just love to hear that. I like the secondary. I think that adding Brandon Cisse is going to be huge. From what we're hearing, Bakari Swain has actually made some progress this past offseason, which is huge because he's going to have to step into a role where he's going to get more playing time. I haven't heard much out of DQ Smith, which is okay. The thing I like about Smith is the experience that he brings back, and I think that's going to be absolutely pivotal for Carolina, especially if the defensive line and linebacker group is not able to get as much pressure on quarterbacks as we saw a year ago. Some of the teams that you saw last year, i.e., Oklahoma, they're not going to be as bad offensively as they were a year ago. So it's going to be interesting to see what kind of answer Carolina's defense can have to the challenges that these SEC offenses are going to give them. So we'll see how it goes, and we'll keep an eye on the Rasul Faison watch. But once again, biggest stories of the day. Carolina expected tomorrow to sign with Nike, ending a 18-year relationship with Under Armour. And then also the SEC announced today that next year the conference schedule will expand from 8 to 9 games. So looking forward to that, and there'll be a lot more to talk about as the season progresses, and as we get closer to the season, we'll certainly have more to chat about then. Until then, though, looking forward to it, and as always, go Cox.